Welcome to the Frontline Focus podcast. I'm your host, Ruben, and we founded this podcast because we want to share stories and inspiration about how you can improve the employee experience for the frontline workforce. And today, my guest is Heleen Mes. I've already known you for many years. Heleen and employee experience are sort of synonymous, especially in the Dutch HR world. So I'm very happy you are spending time today with me to talk about this topic and share your wisdom with the world. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes, wonderful. And would you like to start by introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, you mentioned my name. I'm an employee experience and HR expert and consultant. I started my own business in 2016, HX Work. That's short for the human experience of work. I also founded the LinkedIn group, Employee Experience in the Netherlands and Belgium, the Network Employee Experience in the Netherlands. And I'm the... You have the book on your table. I'm the co-author of Employee Experience with subtitle Happy People, Better Business.
Wow. Employee experience all over.
Yeah, it is.
That is your topic. That's why I said
Yeah.
LMS and employee experience are like synonymous to me.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wonderful. Why are you so passionate about this topic?
For me, employee experience as an HR professional is really the next step for HR. And for me, employee experience is also the HR practice of the best employers, best workplace in the world and in the Netherlands. Yeah. And I really like to share, like you said, my wisdom, my expertise to a lot of companies.
Yeah. So indeed, the next step.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it takes a long time, the next step, because I'm already, employee experience started in the Netherlands about 2016. A little bit before that, 2014, we had the first employee experience director at Airbnb. And 2016, the first employee experience managers in the Netherlands. And from that on, we see, more awareness. But the steps organization take, it goes very slowly. I hope we will get some more, fast movement around the subject.
And you say indeed that a lot of companies, every company has HR, and that employee experience is the next step. What do you see is like? Is it like that you have then an employee experience director, or is it just like you can still have an HR director, but it's very focused on employee experience? Like what is the difference? Well, how do you take that next step? What is that next step?
Well, for me, employee experience is a vision you have about how you have to deal with the people at work. And employee experience for me is all about creating a workplace where people want to go to work instead of have to. And go to work and stay there because the workplace make them happy. Yeah. And it's, like I said, it's also the practice of top employers. And my mission is to share those secrets of top employers with the rest of the world, because it's not a coincidence if you become a great employer. They do things different. And I like to share those different things with the Netherlands and the world. Yeah. And employee experience is all about that you really go back to the people you work for and be aware of all the little things you do, all and how it interacts with their experience. Yeah. Employee experience is more about how the work feels. Yeah. Sometimes we call it 3D HR. It's not only what you want or do, but also how it feels, the emotions people feel at work? Does it
Yeah.
make them feel good?
Yeah.
Are they going home and say, I had a great day? Or do they say a lot of other things?
Yeah.
And it's all about going to the perspective of the employee, the
Yeah.
people you work for,
Yeah.
instead of, like a lot of HR people do, from their experience, from their intention, and then make policies and products and services. And employee experience is all about creating a stronger bond between you and your employer
Yeah.
that makes you happy.
Exactly. It's basically similar to the thing that happened with customer experience.
It is. It customer experience was ahead of employee experience, and
Definitely.
customer experience. We use a lot of methods and way of working and from the customer experience, but customer experience will never become a success if the people who have to deliver the customer experience are not feeling good at work.
Yes.
So it started with customer experience, but I do think the next step is the employee experience, because if people are happy, they make their customers happy.
Yes. Exactly. And especially, and that counts for every company, but I think especially for frontline workers that are every day interacting with the customers. And in a lot of ways, also customers want more that human interaction with employees. For example, if you go to a retail store, you want to have friendly employees that are helping you, because you can also go online and you have that experience there.
Sure.
But the people make the difference.
Yes.
So employee experience and customer experience is really linked.
Yes, that's why it's so important that, especially for frontline workers, you have your employee experience on a high level.
Yeah.
Exactly what you say. They create the customer experience, and it's a group. It's a special group. You know, in Corona times, they were our heroes, while we were sitting at home.
Yeah, they were essential.
They had to work and go out. Sometimes we forget how much heroes they are.
Yes.
And but sometimes it's a difficult group for HR people because
100%.
They interact with the customer. So that interaction with the customer creates their employee experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're hard to reach because they have limited access to their
Computer,
laptop, phone. How do you communicate with them? Time for meetings, they don't have. I'm an HR person. We had surveys. Yeah, I had time to fill it in. But the frontline workers, they had to do it at home. And they thought, if...
You get paid by the hour usually.
Yeah,
So,
you're right. And there's no time. So you really have to think, if you want to create a great employee experience for frontline workers, what is their world?
yeah.
How can I reach them?
Yeah.
And talk with them and ask for their ideas of how you can do things like this. And,
It's basically that indeed every company has a customer experience, but the question is it good? And the same is like every company has an employee experience, but is it good? And are you intentionally working on making it better? And how do you do that? Because indeed HR does think a lot from their perspective, but also HR, we have to give it to them. It's a very busy job with like a lot of things that are happening and a lot of things that are like very urgent and you have to do now. And you cannot really sit back for maybe a few hours even to think, okay, how are we going to make this employee experience better?
The only way to create a better employee experience for frontline workers is to talk with them. And sometimes that's not easy because they're working. How do I create time? But we see, if we do a project and we really first think about what do we want to know from our frontline workers, you can come up with very few questions to ask. And sometimes you can fill in those questions by just looking at how they work. And sometimes we go to them and said, do you have 20 minutes? In your lunch break, we pay you coffee. And we go very fast through those questions. It helps a lot.
Yes. It doesn't have to be like a big research. Sometimes
no.
even if you look at the TV series Undercover Boss, just one time the boss goes undercover just for maybe a few days and they already experience so many improvements.
You're right. I do love companies where the people who work on the head office and the board 1 or 2 times a year goes to the stores, go to whatever, and work with the people.
Yes.
And that when it's Christmas time and the shops are busy, that you're not staying at your desk, but you're going to help them. Yeah. It creates a lot of awareness of what your company is doing and the frontline workers, and it creates a lot of recognition with the frontline workers for, hey, somebody from the head office is working with me.
It doesn't feel like they're sitting in their ivory tower, but it feels like one team.
Yeah.
It feels like you're one team working on the same thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And indeed, we can talk about like what are some general improvements that companies can do on their employee experience. But it's also just you need to go to them, speak to them, and then you get ideas that are specific for their company. But I am interested in talking like what are some general things in the employee experience that could be improved. I first wanted to start by asking like what's the definition of employee experience, but I think we already talked about it, and I think it's also I would say a pretty broad definition. It's everything.
Yeah. Well, I started with employee experience should make people happy at work. Yeah. And for me, happiness at work is a two-way street. I do think that the frontline workers, everybody who works, should be aware of what makes me happy at work. What do I need? And how do I get it? And if I don't get it here, where else do I get it? Yeah. Let me start with that part, because employee experience should tribute to that part. Well, I wrote a lot of books about happiness at work, but I still go back to the research of a Harvard professor, Moss Cantor. And she said, well, of course, to be happy at work and productive, you need to have the basic in place. You need to get your salary. You need to be able to get to your work. It doesn't take a long time. You need, well, all your perks. And that's the basics.
Yeah, hygiene factor.
Yeah. But what people really need to be happy are 3 things. And she said all goes back to 3 things. The first is meaning. Meaning that your work has a meaning for yourself, that a meaning for the society. And the more you feel that meaning, the better you feel yourself. I do think that, well, if I look at my kids and the work they do, a lot of meaning wasn't there.
This is also difficult, I think, with quite a few frontline companies like retail, hospitality.
Yeah, they work for money. And I do think, well, it makes you happy for a short period. If you study, it would be nice. But after that, people need some meaning in their life. Yeah. And I do also think that organization paid too few attention to meaningful work. Yeah. Also for frontline workers. And she says the second is mastery, becoming good in your work. Do you feel you can do your work at a great way? Do you educate yourself? Is there training? Is there feedback? Do you get the autonomy to do your work at your way? That's the second part. Yeah. And The third is all about the people you work with.
Yeah.
She says if you have a great bond with the people you work with your manager, if you make fun together, that create belonging, connection, and that people need that.
Yeah.
And I do think, all these three things, it's meaning, mastery, membership, belonging somewhere, that a company can contribute to these three things.
Yeah. On top of the hygiene factor, of course, it has to be there. Yeah, exactly.
Also with people like students who only work a short period at your company. You know, some companies, they really invest in that, and they say, well, people stay with us after their study, they come back. And we started with that a long time ago. Organization, like I said, happiness at work is a two-way street. Organizations have all kinds of things to contribute to that happiness at work. It starts with a great culture.
Yes.
Knowing why you're working, meaning.
Yeah.
Really listen to people. Get their ideas at innovation, not only from the head office or the R&D department. No, the people at the front office have the best ideas.
Yes.
Humor, laugh with each other, inclusion, things like that. So culture. Next is the physical workplace. You can do a lot of good things with the physical workplace. I see in the Netherlands a lot of companies who really change the physical workplace to make it a workplace that makes you creative, better for socializing, and make you more healthier.
Yeah. And I can imagine that's especially true for like the desk workers that are sitting at their office with beautiful offices and ping pong tables and kitchens. But for the frontline workers, you work in the store, you work in the restaurant. But the canteen, I've seen some canteens that are straight out of a horror movie, almost like windows, white light, red coffee.
That's some of my advices to organization. They say, well, the head office, it looks great. But then I go to the store and I see where people have to eat their lunch. And it's terrible.
Yeah.
And we talk about that also that place need to be more
inspiring.
And better to create a better employee experience. Don't 100%. Forget that.
And also to show that you appreciate them. Because if you put them in like a terrible canteen, it shows that no money is invested in the cheapest of everything.
Yeah.
It shows that you don't really care or appreciate or value them.
You have a lunch break, and it could be a time to really get some energy.
Yeah.
To work the rest of the day. And if you're sitting like that, it takes your energy.
Yeah, exactly.
The third is all about leadership and ways of working. And leadership is very important for the employee experience.
100%. The frontline managers, they make a big part of the employee experience. We talked about this before, that indeed the managers or the people that we know that have bad experience at frontline companies with frontline workers, most of the time it's about the managers.
Yes, you're right.
That are making a bad culture.
Yeah.
Because indeed those things that you mentioned, meaning, mastery, the co-workers, the culture, the manager has a lot of influence in
it. It is. I told you before, my son was working at the supermarket, and he stayed for 1 year longer than he wanted to stay because he said, I have such a great boss. I don't want to disappoint him.
Yes.
I thought it was very sweet for him, but he said, it's such a great guy. And that's why I'm staying. I'm done with the work already, but I'm staying for him and the team.
Yeah, and I think that's changing as well. I see more and more companies that are really valuing managers that are great people leaders is becoming more and more important in the selection process, instead of like having a, let's say, a supermarket manager that knows a lot about the numbers and stock and inventory and all these different things. They want to have people that have more people skills for the customers, of course, but also especially for the team, to motivate them and get the most out of them, let's say, inspire them and create that culture. In Holland, we say gezellig.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yes.
To have a gezellig culture.
It is.
One of the things that indeed people will then think, I cannot disappoint my colleagues, I cannot disappoint my manager when I leave. When I was working in the supermarket, I had a terrible manager. And I didn't have any contact with other colleagues because I wasn't introduced. It was not a fun culture. So after 3 weeks, I just quit, and I don't think anyone even noticed, like the manager didn't notice. But if I had a great connection with the team and with the manager, I would have felt bad to leave. I didn't want to leave them.
You're right. I have 2 sons. The other son was working in the other supermarket, and he had for 3 times a terrible experience with his manager, and he decided he would never want to work in a company again because he doesn't want to have that experience. So he started his own company. And I think it's terrible that young people have experience like that, because in these days we lose them for the rest of their working life.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it's not that hard to start your own business online or anything.
Yeah.
So treating your team in a good way is very important. And of course, way of workings, communication with each other is very important. And I have 5, so I go to number 4, everything about the employee journey, from recruitment, onboarding, learning and development to offboarding. Is important that it's really good in place and gives you a good feeling, instead of giving you letters or a contract you don't understand or very legal or you know.
Yeah.
There's no love in the lines. And the 5th one is also very important, technology. That people have the technology to work with, that, you know, on a level that you say, oh, I want to take this home because it works so well. Exactly. Instead of, can I take the apps, the IE I work with at home to the company? No, you can't. Well, I had I worked at a company last year, and I work with ChatGPT a lot of times a day. But the company didn't allow me to work on it at their office for security, blah, blah, blah. And I really thought, well, we need to change things like that.
Yeah. Exactly, and those are things that people at the headquarters can do, because indeed a big part of the employee experience is reliant on the managers. Of course, you have to do as much as you can to train them and teach them on the better management practices, and you have to hire the right people and promote the right ones, etc. But there's also things on the headquarters people can do. One of them is indeed the technology side, making things as smooth as possible. You know, there's still so many companies where your shift schedule. You have to go to the store, to the canteen, and there's it's printed out, or you have to ask your colleagues, hey, can you take a picture?
It's terrible.
Yeah, or handbooks and all these other things. I also recently spoke to a company where they actually have an employee experience a team that has a backlog and working in sprints to improve things. And one of the things is that there are so many documents for the employees, and they're all written down in a very legal way, very boring way, and they know that no one was reading it. And also to show their appreciation for the employees, they're rewriting everything in a more fun way, in a more engaging way.
Great.
So those are things indeed they can work on. And I think that's the dream, if you have a team that's actually work on it. This was a large airliner, so I think they had the budget for it. But there's still things that you can do indeed to just talk to the employees, map their experience. I think that's also what you do a lot, right?
That's what my company does. Yes.
Yeah, the workshops, post-its.
Yeah. Yes.
How do you start with that? How do you start mapping this employee experience to spot improvements?
Okay, well, first we start with the company and have a discussion of what kind of employer do you want to be?
Yeah.
And what are your USP? And then we dive into the work of the people or the employee experience map. First, we try to figure out what are the problems.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people say employee experience is something like the cream on my cake. And I said, well, sometimes
The whole cake.
we have to work on the cake, and the cake doesn't taste very well.
Yeah.
So the cream is next step. So we've interview people about what are the main friction at work, what keeps you from doing a great job,
Yes.
and what do you need to be a better version of yourself at work? What do you want for your team?
Yeah.
So that's where I start, and then if we figure out their top priorities, then we do the deep dive and really go from the first moment to the last moment. We make an empathy map of what's happening, how does it feel for people, what do they think, what did they need, what kind of ideas do they have, and then we figure out what are the priorities in that. Because if we start at organization, you know, there's so much to do. So you really need to have focus.
Yeah.
Better do one or two things on a great way than end up with a total list and everybody thinks, oh my God, what do we have to do? So every time we go back to priorities, and if we really understand what is happening, then we can have a plan with all the departments involved. You never start, because that's one of the things people of our organization, they give their problem to one department. But the most of the priorities is for multiple departments.
Yeah. Just like with customer experience.
It is. If your onboarding is not good, it's always a matter of HR is involved, facility management, IT is involved, communication is involved. So we really need to work together on this.
Yeah.
And then we do it step by step.
Yeah, exactly. So it starts with indeed the attention, like you do want to become a great employer. And actually, I wanted to dive in on that a little bit more. You say that it became more of a popular topic, employee experience 2014, 2016, and now 2024. I hear it all the time. Every time I talk to HR directors, it's always about employee experience. I think you also recently did a study where you asked, like, is this an important topic? And the vast majority said yes, but then the question is how many are actually working on it?
Yeah, it is. 70% of the organization said very important topic.
Yeah.
And if you ask them, how many of you are really making progress? It was less than 20%.
Yeah.
So 50% are still struggling with how do I find my way with this topic?
Yeah. Yeah. And to make it indeed like a priority, because in that Eisenhower matrix, important, urgent, and not important, it's important, but maybe not urgent. I mean, because there are other things that are more urgent, especially in the HR role with like things going on.
There are all kinds of reasons for that. And I wish there was a little bit less reasons to do other things. We see companies that when they start, they don't have a plan. They just say to somebody, you're now our expert in employee experience.
Yeah.
No, really. No fun. It is.
It's sad.
Yeah. And that person thinks, okay, what do I have to do? And sometimes organization just start with no plan. We see in those research, 50% of the organizations start with no master plan, have no idea what do we want, what do we need for support, how we're going to organize it, what knowledge do we need, how does our journey looks like, nothing. So that's one thing. And when they start, they don't have the knowledge in employee experience. So invest in yourself, because it's not just HR with a new name. It's something different.
Yeah, you need this book, that's for sure. Shameless promotion. But no, I've read this book, and it's like a lot of information about the employee experience.
It is.
That's a good start. That's a good start.
It's a good start, but there is so much more information you can find. I give masterclass classes about it, but a lot of companies, they have customer experience experts in the company. Well, go over there and ask their help.
Yeah.
So I see companies who start with no plan, no knowledge, no knowledge of new method. We use design thinking, agile working, a listening strategy. None of this. A lot of companies don't take that to invest.
Yeah.
Sometimes they make their plans really big. That was in the first years, organization asked consultants, do a review about the whole employee experience. Well, if you do that, you come back with a lot of things to work on.
Yeah.
You can work on that for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But after 2 years, things are changed, organization has changed. So that's not the way to do, If you want to start, make it small, make it simple, start with something that everybody would love. That's why starting with onboarding is very popular, because you cannot go wrong with doing that better, and you need some small success to create awareness and go on.
It's indeed good to have like an overview of like, just like with a car, if you want to improve a certain model, like you have an overview of the model and you see, maybe the brakes are really bad or the gearbox is really bad. But the rest is okay, it's less important. So let's focus on these two things and just start there. So you need to have an overview, but then you need to really quickly get to like, okay, what is the one thing that we're going to work on?
Exactly, yes. Because, it's different. And like I said, you need a small success to start with. We had in my network, employee experience managers were the first year very busy with doing research, education, talking with everybody, but no results. After a year, a company says, let's stop.
Yeah.
Because we're waiting for a year and nothing has changed. So you need your quick successes.
You need that. That makes sense. And what makes it? What's the difference between companies that are doing something that are successful with improving their employee experience? Does it also have to do with that the upper management takes it very serious? Like
that's very important. We see that where there's on a high level, C-level in the organization, really support for employee experience, the improvement goes a lot faster than other organizations. And when they have a team of employee experience experts really want to work on that, a budget, then we see things going faster.
Exactly, because if you just have one, sometimes I see that you just have one HR director, just one, and maybe like one intern. This is, of course, a little bit smaller companies, but then they have the expectations for themselves because they're very passionate about this topic, or the management expects like, hey, you have to improve the employee experience. But they're at the same time also managing all the like payroll things and other HR-related topics. So they want to, they can't, they don't have the resources. It's very stressful, actually. So you need to have the resources.
Yeah.
And what resources would you need? Of course, you want to have like the best case, have a lot of employee experience experts. But let's say you cannot hire anyone from the outside. Like, what team would you need? Is it something like from someone from marketing that has the customer experience vision, like someone from IT, someone from HR that is a little bit outside of the day-to-day HR operations? Like, what team do you need?
Well, I see organizations doing it in a different way. Some big organizations have bigger teams, of course, but you need to have somebody who knows what they're talking about and has an overview. But you cannot do it alone. In the bigger companies, often it starts with human resources. They have an expert. But it would be great if they're experts in facility management, IT, communication too, and you can work together. But we see different types of how to organize depending on how fast do you want to move, how accepted is it, but how more integrated in the organization, work together with customer experience and data people, the faster it goes. Organization who put really somewhere down in the HR team or down in a facility team, one people with no resources, often it goes very wrong. So there's no one way, but you need to have resources, you need to have the knowledge, you need to have the methods and know how to use it.
Exactly. And besides to have the team and that has the time, you also need resources because you probably can find some quick wins. You need maybe rewriting certain documents or improving the onboarding experience in a certain way. But some things, if you want to improve the canteens, like that costs some money, or maybe if you want to do other things, it costs some money. So you do need the resources. But then to finish with that, looking at the time, why should companies prioritize this and get resources for this? Because you say that it's becoming a more relevant topic for a reason. Companies are really focusing on employee experience because it's super important. But why is it so important?
Well, if you look at the tight labor market, we are all fighting for the best people. Yeah. If you look at how to, most of the time employers say to me, how do I get my people and how do I get them in? Yeah. I said, the only way is becoming a good employer, a better employer than 100%. You are now. Now your score is on a scale from 1 to 10 is about a 7. Yeah. That's not good enough.
Yeah. Or the employee net promoter score.
You're right. Our net promoter score for our employees is around 0. Yeah.
There's your problem.
Yeah.
That's an indicator.
There are so many choices people have when they want to have a new employer. And I do hope that everybody who listens don't go and working with a company who are satisfied with their 6 or their 7. There are a lot of companies working very hard to become an 8 and a 9. Yeah. And that are the better employers in this country. Yeah. So, and I do think a better employee experience, we know from research that it helps you to keep the people in. You have companies tell me that they have 2 times more people who apply for a job. Their turnover is half. Their sickness rate is half. People are more creative. The vibe is better in that company. Yeah. All kinds of great things. And we even see that if you look at the stock exchange, the stock market, that companies who are listed as great employer, best workplace, have a much higher value than the average. Yeah. So for all the people involved, it's a great deal to work on their employee experience.
Yeah. All right, that's a great note to wrap it up. To wrap it up with.
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for your time and for your insights.
You're welcome.
Sure people at home found it very, very inspiring. And if they want to keep the dialogue going, they should feel free to add you on LinkedIn or add me on LinkedIn.
Yes, they're very welcome. I write at a lot of sites about the topic, so I hope if you're interested that you read that free blogs I write.
Exactly. So again, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode, and have a wonderful day.